Um, Hello, everybody. Welcome to this session of Check Your Facts, Generative AI Edition. My name is Liz Svoboda. I am the Instruction and Outreach Librarian here at the Thompson Library, and I'll be leading this session. Please feel free to put any questions you have in chat as I'm going, and I'll kind of get to them at the end. I've got a nice flow going through the presentation. And this session is being recorded and we'll post it on our YouTube channel a little bit later, as well as sharing it out to individuals who want to see it. So without further ado, let's get started here. All right. So we're going to talk, there's a little bit of a refresher at the beginning here to talk about what Gen I does, as well as like talking about just some basic kind of overviews of what you should do while you are kind of investigating a source, okay? We're going to look at some examples of AI fact checking, and then we're going to end with some huge caveats, and we'll explain why those caveats are going to be there as well. And then again, questions at the very end. So just as a refresher, generative AI uses training data to respond to prompts put in by people, right? The training data is proprietary based on whoever the company that owns the AI is, but it most likely includes a lot of information that's found on the open web. There's a book I just read recently, and they kind of stated that most likely a lot of the training data is coming from, there's this big, huge data set called the Common Crawl that uses things from like Wikipedia, Reddit, Twitter, AO3, but we're again not entirely sure. This is also a reminder that the internet is full of biases, whether that is that it is geared towards English language speakers and readers over anybody else, and other like some major world languages rather than smaller ones, or it is, coming from a very Western perspective, or that there's just more content on there that's geared towards a particular person, or, so all the same kind of societal biases that we see out in the world are repeated and kind of amplified by the internet in some cases, okay? So if that data is what is being trained and used in these AI tools, those biases are already there. There is, again, some structure and some tools that the trainers are trying to kind of reduce some of that bias, but they're never going to be able to take it out entirely, okay? And I will say that newer models have updated training data, and some of them are even trying to pull live sources and citations from the open web. If they're doing that well or not is kind of up for debate, and we'll show an example of what that looks like in a little bit. And again, once you've given this prompt in, the responses are generated through a neural network and transformers that are kind of behind the scenes, but it's basically this gigantic probability problem, right? So based on your input, what is the probability of these words, these pixels, these audio waves, kind of responding to this prompt, right? And how often are they going to be near each other in the training data, okay? So again, it's incredibly more complex than this, but at its basis, AI is just a gigantic math problem, as is actually most computing, right? It's just a very complex probability problem, okay? So let's do a refresher on what we need to do when we're kind of thinking about and being kind of presented with a source, whether that is something that we are seeing coming from social media, from a news site, or if it is a prompt that we are actually getting back from an AI model, okay? So first off, we need to pause or stop, right? And looking at, just to give us a second to kind of understand and comprehend what the data is telling us. The original model of SIFT is coming from Mike Caulfield, and it asks us to investigate the source a little bit more. Now with AI, we can't necessarily really investigate the source, right? We can't really go in and see the training model or see how this is working, okay? And if we're treating AI as a source, this is something that we need to think about. But we can go and try to trace claims and other things that are within that source that are being presented to us, whether it is a live link out to a citation or a source on the internet, whether we're asking it to give us citations, and we can try to kind of figure out if those are real or not. And then again, we can use these tools to either find better coverage, to reprompt and kind of work with it a little bit, or maybe we need to go back to search engines and databases and other things to kind of find these things. Now, generative AI is very broad, and there are a lot of different types of models and a lot of different things that are included there. Most often, I'm going to be talking about large language models, so ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, Claude, these kinds of things. But other models will be similar to this as well, or we'll have kind of similar needs to verify their information. So when we're talking about investigating the source and even again, kind of finding that better coverage and kind of tracing those claims, again, the standard kind of Blakesley crap test that we see. How current is the information? How relevant is it? Who is this person who's putting it out there? How accurate it is? What's the purpose? Okay. Now, this usually is applying it to the source, but we can also apply it to the kind of situation about when we're seeing this source, right? So if we're encountering something that we think might be generated AI, so like an image that you see we'll pick on Pinterest because they're rampant right now with AI images. I think, why am I on Pinterest? Why am I seeing this? Is it supposed to inform me? Is it entertaining me? Right? Um, I can try to check some of the currency on things. It just kind of depends on what your use is. But we can also kind of switch this over and talk about it in AI. So thinking about this with AI as the source, with the currency, what model are you using? And how current is that training data? Okay. So to give you and then we can talk about who the authority is. Who's creating this AI, right? Is it from a for-profit company? Is it, do we know kind of who's kind of behind it? When they are pulling sources from the open web, especially if you're using something like Copilot or Gemini or even ChatGPT, I'll show you in a second. Who are they kind of pulling this from? Can we fact check them at all? Are there citations? Are there specific facts that you can kind of trace within these prompts that they're giving, right? And again, with purpose, you can also think about, is the bias addressed at all, right? And we'll kind of see, actually, I did a prompt this morning that it'll be intriguing to see kind of what happens with this. But just to show you, let me look in here to, these AIs. So this morning, like literally an hour, not even ago, I asked just the free version of ChatGPT. And I think, what am I on? I'm on the regular one here. Hold on. I don't remember what it's saying, but I basically asked it how current is your information, or when is your training data from? And it says the general knowledge is up to June 2024. Okay, but it can pull real-time information from the web. And this is an upgrade from, I asked a similar question last year, on actually just over a year ago in March of 2024. I asked the same exact question, and it said that my last data is of January 2022. So again, 2 years ago. And so there's some information in here that it said I may not be aware of developments in. So within a year, they have really upped even this kind of free version of ChatGPT that's available. Okay. As a comparison, let's take a look at UMGPT. So again, this morning I asked it, how up to date is your training data? And it said my training data goes up to October 2023. And then since that was all it gave me, I'm like, can you pull sources from the internet? And it said no. Okay, so this is, again, depending on what model you are using, you are going to see very different abilities on what information it's pulling from, how it's able to kind of retrieve, and if it thinks it can retrieve more up-to-date information. Okay. And again, based on how much resources you have, whether that is time, whether that is money, it is going to really change the ability you have to use these models. Okay. All right. So with a lot of these prompts that you're getting, you kind of still need to do this lateral reading, right? So how did you find the source? Did you prompt the AI yourself? Is this something that you are seeing that from the open web or from a publication that you think might be AI? Okay. If it's something that you're finding out on the wild west of the internet, what are others saying about it? right? Are other people claiming that this is AI? Is there anything that's there? If it's a prompt, you can again kind of try to fact check it. So not what others are saying about the models so much, but what, the content that's in there. You can try to look into, who founded the the different companies for AI, this kind of thing, who are the funders. And again, remember those biases that are just inherent in anything in our lives. And again, that's reproduced on the internet and in this training data that we're seeing with AI. Okay. So we also need to think about the levels of evidence. Okay. So AI is basing all of its answers on this training data that it's found, as well as we're seeing more and more kind of trying to pull in sources that it thinks are relevant to the outputs that it's giving. Okay. So if we're thinking about this in a primary, secondary, tertiary source, we're looking a little bit more at this kind of tertiary source, which is a summary or a restatement of primary and secondary sources. Primary sources being original research that's being done, breaking news stories that are coming out. Secondary sources are like editorials or literature reviews, other nonfiction books that are not necessarily giving you, original research. Okay. So there's a big question mark here because I haven't really seen a lot of people trying to classify AI prompts this way, but in just to kind of, again, give you some framework for how to think about the information that's coming out, I would kind of, again, go into this summary or restatement of knowledge that's already been created by others. Okay. So let's take a look at some actual fact checking live. All right, there's two videos I'm going to show you, one in its entirety, the other one in it's a longer video, so I'm not going to necessarily show you the entire thing. Okay. Fingers crossed that this works. So we're going to pause here. Let me know if you can't hear this in the chat, and I'll be watching it, but it should work.
AI-written foraging books are legitimately hurting people now, which is totally great and definitely not scary and reminiscent of an awful sci-fi movie. Today on Reddit, there was a post in the Legal Advice UK subreddit saying, "My family was poisoned after using an AI-generated mushroom identification book we bought from a major online retailer." The person's wife bought them the book as a gift. It was supposed to have accurate photos and descriptions of the mushrooms, and then they found out it's not accurate and that even the images were AI generated. These guys are legally trying to figure out what they can do because these online retailers, like the one that starts with an A and ends with Amazon, don't usually accept any kind of responsibility or liability in these situations, which is, once again, terrifying post-apocalyptic feel. I'm just really glad that they're okay. So I thought it would be interesting to hop on Amazon, type in foraging book, and see what shows up. First thing that shows up for me, because it is sponsored, is this guy. The Illustrated Forager's Harvest Guide, which I'm already suspicious of for two reasons. One, Ethan Wildwood just feels like a made-up name. I'm so sorry if your name actually is Ethan Wildwood. If it is, enjoy that because it's really cool, like too cool to exist maybe? So it's called the Illustrated Forager's Harvest Guide. The Forager's Harvest is a famous book by the well-known foraging writer and educator and my friend, Sam Thayer. And a lot of people rip off the name of his books. There's another Forager's Harvest. I was feeling kind of curious, so I clicked on that first book that showed up for me, the one that's sponsored, the one that paid money to show up first, and went to the About the Author. I see no mention of where he's from, where he grew up, what part of the world he even knows well and will be talking to us about in this book that he supposedly wrote. Just an allusion to him being enlisted in the US Army and saying he grew up rural and he learned from his papa. So I did what every sane, not scared person did, and I reverse image searched the picture. The only thing that came up, a link to the book that we just got the picture from, and nothing else, just these books that were listed on the page we just came from. Things are feeling suspicious. Okay, what happens if I just type in his name? Ethan Wildwood. Seems pretty unique. It should surely turn up some articles or a local news appearance. Nope, just those books, just the book that we just saw, and also one about hunting and butchering. And then there seems to be nothing else. Looked him up on Facebook, and it notes they have a new type of profile where they don't have to use the name that they go by in everyday life, which also feels suspicious. Also, he has a lot of friends, so I don't know, maybe that is a token in the maybe he's real bucket. It was linked Instagram, and I thought, let's go see when his first post was from. Just let me see. So, February 13th. Also, what is that? What is that? What's on his head? That is an AI image. I also found out that before you pay any money, you can look at a free preview of it on Kindle. The first illustration you see is this one of wild strawberry. Hold on, wait a second. What are those? That's not how a strawberry grows. It has 3 leaflets on one leaf, and that's, guys, it's so crazy that people have to do this kind of research and do this kind of homework or have this kind of knowledge to not get scammed and maybe go to the hospital. So just please be careful, do your research. This is the don't die and happy snacking, don't die. I love you all, please be safe.
Okay. So if you don't know, this is Alexis Nicole. She is the Black Forager. And just to show you that I did my research, even though I've been following her for a while, you can see, like, we kind of go back and fact check again, we're seeing that, she has her own Instagram, she has her own YouTube, she has been interviewed by NPR, right? So she is a real live person, all right? She has this kind of experience, and again, she's known in this community pretty well, okay? So again, this was an example of someone who already had a suspicion that this was an artificial intelligence situation, okay? Very serious one in case of, misinformation coming out of a foraging book, right? Let's look at another example here. And this is a patent lawyer from Europe. His name is Bastian Best. And again, excuse me. And just so that you know, I did my own research. Here's his website. Right? He's an AI patent attorney, and because I don't trust just his website, we've found him on LinkedIn. We've also found him, listed in a couple of different newspaper articles, okay? So he is pretty much who he says he is. But let's take a look and kind of watch his, and again, we are not going to watch the entire video here because this is a lot longer.
Hey, it's me, Bastian. If you're a patent attorney like me, you've probably spent countless hours researching case law, right? But what if I told you that actually AI can do the heavy lifting for you? Today, I'm putting 2 AI chatbots to the test, namely ChatGPT and Google Gemini. And let's find out which one is the best case law researcher, without hallucinating cases that don't exist, of course. Let's find out. Before we dive into the demos, a quick note on model selection. So all modern chatbots nowadays offer various different models for different use cases. Traditionally, AI models were designed as standard large language models, LLMs, right? And those are optimized for writing and text generation. However, standard LLMs tend to hallucinate quite horribly for tasks like case law research, or generally for tasks that involve researching facts, as compared to just writing a nice text, right? And if you've taken my free intro course on generative tests. Okay, so let's start with ChatGPT. I've selected the O1 reasoning model, and I will also activate the deep research option here. Now, the prompt looks like this. Give me an overview of the EPO practice on sufficiency of disclosure of AI ML inventions. Cite relevant passages from the EPO guidelines, and give me a list of all relevant Board of Appeal decisions with a full case number, a link to the decision, and a short summary of the key points. So let's see what ChatGPT does with this prompt. Okay, sometimes these chatbots have counter questions. So ChatGPT is asking, do you want a focus on particular applications or a general overview? We're going for a general overview. Okay, 4 minutes later and we have ChatGPT's final report. So let's have a look. EPO guidelines on sufficiency of disclosure for AI ML inventions. So it starts with a short intro explanation, talks about Board of Appeal case law. So which decisions does it cite? Okay, this one, equivalent aortic pressure. Yes, that's in fact one of the earliest decisions that dealt with sufficiency of disclosure of an AI invention. I've made an own video on this channel on this decision, so that's pretty nice. It also has the direct link to the decision, which is very nice to have. And it quite accurately summarizes the decision.
Okay, I'm going to pause for a second because I want you to notice that he is reading this very fast, okay? And I am guessing that no one in this webinar is an EU patent attorney and has this expertise, right? So when we watched Alexis Nicole's video and we're watching Bastian's video here, we're seeing their kind of expertise and knowledge at the forefront, and like they're able to kind of quickly scan through and use some of the context clues and the knowledge that they have already to show this. All right, so moving back here, we're going to show a little bit more of this.
It also cites, secondary sources, blog articles about the decision. What else do we have? The decision neuroplasticity, also a good hit, also with a direct link here. And then we have this decision here. I also have an article on this one on my website. This sufficiency of disclosure of AI ML inventions at the EPO. So this report starts with an introduction. And then we have a section about the general EPO approach, talks a bit about the convict approach, okay. So then it turns to the EPO guidelines, and it says that the EPO guidelines for examination provide guidance on the requirements for sufficiency of disclosure, and it is citing second order source, an article by a law firm here. Then it goes on to address the guidelines more specifically, and here it's turning to the section about AI and machine learning, which is again unfortunately not linked here directly, but it's also again a blog article. And then it turns to relevant Board of Appeal decisions. It has built a nice table here, so let's look what's in there. We have first of all the decision about determining cardiac output. Yes, that's great, although the link here is unfortunately not to the decision directly, but to a blog article about this decision. What else do we have? We have here, this time, it included the direct link to the neuroplasticity decision. Okay. We have this one here, plasma torch. I'm not aware of this decision in the context of machine learning inventions. So let's see what Gemini has to say about this decision. Interestingly, the decision number is actually 1539 of 21, and Gemini did a mistake here because it's citing 20 at the end. The invention
Okay. So again, we're seeing these kinds of SIFT moments, this kind of crap analysis in real time, right? Well, not real time, because this was published a few months back at this point. But again, we're looking for credibility. We're looking for accuracy. We're looking to see what level of sources. Bastian said multiple times, is this the primary case law document, right? Or is this a secondary source like a blog post or something like that, okay? So again, when you are fact checking, you need to be a little bit you have to have some sort of knowledge, if not expertise, in a subject to adequately fact check. And I'm actually not glad I had to reschedule this webinar, but it provided an excellent opportunity. So this Twitter X/Twitter post came up a couple days ago about the lovely tariff situation that we are in the US right now, by Rohit here. And he's actually written a couple of books on generative AI. And he kind of deduced that the method and the formula for calculating the tariffs that we've seen, that has gotten the US to tariff some penguin inhabited islands at 10%, is possibly AI generated, right? Because he tested it in a few, at least two ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and Grok, and they're all giving a really similar answer on how to impose tariffs, right? So again, there's a level of expertise that you need to know about, like what not only the AI is capable of, but also what those outputs are going to be. All right. So now the caveat section here. All of what I've said and shown you may be irrelevant in a week, a month, a year. We don't know. Okay. And again, so when I did this, I did a presentation at a conference last year on kind of fact checking initially AI. And when I was looking at stuff, I was able to kind of pull through and talk about the presidential election, right? So I asked UMGPT back in March of 2024, what is going on in the US presidential election? And it said nothing. It said I couldn't really tell you. Okay. Again, I did a similar one with ChatGPT at the time, back in 2024, and it said it couldn't do this. But as of today, we saw that in a similar kind of aspect here, that I asked it about how tariffs work because that's a big news story right now. And it's giving me some information about that. And then I asked it, about what Trump's tariff plan is. And you'll notice that it's giving me two responses and it wants me to pick them. Okay. It's also with this new model because it is pulling directly from the web. I can kind of pull it. I'm seeing things from The Guardian. I'm seeing things from Business Insider and Market Watch. And it's also giving me options to kind of pull through multiple sources here that are kind of, at least it thinks it's trying to say things. But I'm also getting things from the New York Post, which is a little bit kind of a tabloid, right? I would need to go through and kind of vet some of these sources. We're seeing Wikipedia, we're seeing people.com/the magazine, which is, celebrity news tabloid site. So why is that coming back along with things like Business Insider? I would need to look at this kind of news. It's just saying news. So what news site is this? So I would need to do a little bit more looking into this to see what's going on. Okay. Hi everybody, Liz here from the future. So I'm editing this couple later, and I went back and I was noticing this. I noticed a hallucination that ChatGPT gave me. So initially this webinar was run on like April 4th or 5th. I can't remember off the top of my head. And ChatGPT was saying that on April 3rd, Donald Trump announced the Liberation Day. Now, this is just again a factual inaccuracy because the Trump tariff announcement was on April 2nd. And this is Wikipedia, but if you actually want to look up the official executive order from this, and we'll trust the American Presidency Project here, it was signed on April 2nd. So again, even really basic facts are sometimes wrong with ChatGPT and other types of models. And if you think about that probability function, the more and more of these stories were published on April 3rd. So that's possibly why ChatGPT is hallucinating, because there's more probability that Liberation Day / the tariff plan is being talked about on April 3rd. Something to think about. So again, there's a lot of things that are going on and changing rapidly in this. And there's also no detector or no tells that will always be correct. Okay. With AI detectors, I liken them to an arms race at this point. They're really reactive. They're really trying to kind of catch up. And a lot of them are using AI to detect AI. So it's this lovely little round robin circle that we're going through. So again, there will be hallucinations, which again is what the term that a lot of people use for mistakes or fabrications that AI comes up with. And a lot of people think, oh, I can always tell something's AI because of weird anatomy or geometry in images. So if we're going back to that Alexis Nicole example, the thing on the deer's head, obviously an AI image. But also like if you're looking, you may have to look really closely. So again, Alexis forages for wild strawberries all the time. So she kind of knew what that plant is supposed to look like. Whereas with a quick glance, I may not have seen it, right? I get my strawberries most of the time from Meijer or the grocery store, like a lot of other Americans, okay? And another one I've seen a lot, especially in text, is that there's a lot of use of like M dashes or certain phrases like as of my last knowledge update. But we've also seen, that knowledge update is changing rapidly, okay? So again, the quality of outputs is going to be based not only on the model used, but its capabilities. So again, this kind of lateral reading, this kind of double checking and kind of trying to verify from multiple sources is going to be more and more necessary as we go. Don't ever ignore the spidey sense you might have of, oh, I think this might be AI, right? We know how humans speak and act and look on video and in photographs and other things, right? So again, pay attention to that little bit of sense that you might have in the background. But again, these models are going to get better. They're going to get better. They are going to get more lifelike. And I don't want to be all doom and gloom and like scary, but it's going to be harder and harder to tell right off the bat if something is AI. So this extra level of investigation is going to be necessary as we're going forward. Okay. The other thing that I like to think about when it comes to AI is that if this old adage, right? If all you have is a hammer, everything begins to look like a nail. Granted, there are a lot of different types of hammers, and there's a lot of different types of nails that are out there, right? Just like there are a lot of different types of AI models, okay? So, but as we get to see this more and more, we need to start adapting to not only AI tools, but other tools that we have had in our back pockets for a very long time and use AI as tools rather than as just kind of answer machines, right? And understanding that there are setbacks and drawbacks to using these tools while again using them to their greatest capability because they are amazing in some ways, okay? And now with that, questions. Anything, I don't think I saw anything pop up in the chat, but if, again, you want to pop anything in there, please feel free to do so. Also, check out our YouTube channel for recordings of webinars. I will be sending this one out. If you've got any questions for me, that's also here. And then just because I'm an ethical, responsible person, here's some sources that I pulled in for today's chat, webinar, excuse me, including that Twitter X post, as well as some of the other things that I was talking about. Thank you for watching this recorded webinar. Find upcoming webinars to register for at libcal.umflint.edu.